Good evening, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It is Friday evening, and yesterday, Thursday, the 20th of June, was fixture release day. Finally, it feels like the domestic football season is getting a little bit closer, and on top of the Sky Bet League One fixtures being announced at 9 o'clock yesterday morning, we also had the EFL Cup draw yesterday, the Carabao Cup, from the glamour and glitz of a Morrison's supermarket in London. Draw was done by John Barnes and Ray Parler, ably assisted by Luke O'Neill lookalike Sam Matterface, and the Gills will play Michael Flynn's Newport County in the first round, week commencing the 12th of August. So that's that out of the way. Yeah, a decent draw. Michael Flynn homecoming, be great to see him. Be great to see what his team's about at close hand. But by no means it'll be an easy tie. You only have to look at their cup record over the last two seasons. Leicester, Middlesbrough, Leeds, Man City, Tottenham have all been given real games in the FA Cup by Michael Flynn's team. So that'll be a really good game, a really good test, I think, early on for Steve Evans' Gills, and one that I look forward to. But obviously the main thing was Football League fixtures have been announced, and it's not just my views you're going to hear tonight. I have got three guests who have sent me their views on the fixture release and also their thoughts on Steve Evans' embryonic reign as Gills gaffer so far. And they are Gabriel Sutton, who runs a very good football website, the Football Lab, and you can find him on Twitter. Owen Stanley, Gills fan, Raynham End regular, and Tom Eves, Tribute Haircut. And finally, Ben Watts, who works for BBC Radio Kent and does cover the Gills regularly throughout the season. So it's great to get his views. But yeah, in terms of myself, well, no, let's listen to someone else first. So first up, we're going to get the thoughts of Gabe, who runs the Football Lab, and here's his thoughts on the fixture release for Gills and also Steve Evans so far.
I'm not going to claim to be the biggest Steve Evans fan in the world, but I think if you take away certain elements of the baggage, he's probably got a decent record below championship level. I think he's a direct manager. I don't necessarily think he's a long ball manager or a defensive manager in that sense. I think it's about getting the ball forward quickly and playing at a high tempo when his teams are at their best. In terms of the signings, Jack Bonham, I would say, is a decent replacement for Thomas Holy, who had that excellent 17-18 season. Matty Willock seems to be quite highly rated as well. He looks quite an exciting prospect in that midfield. Getting him on a permanent deal is quite good as well. You'd imagine, I would think, that Tom Eves could be off. I mean, I've heard rumours linking him with Ipswich. I think replacing him will be crucial, because I think you do need a strong centre forward in a Steve Evans side. But on the whole, I think there's signs that Paul Scally is willing to back Steve Evans, and it's just going to be interesting to see how things come together. Interesting deja vu with the fixtures, really. Obviously, Doncaster away, that was Gillingham's first game 2 seasons ago, and then Burton at home, the second game of the season. That was exactly the same as it was a season ago. I think it's going to be important that Evans gets off to a good start, because I do think that he's perhaps judged more on results than most managers, in terms of it's rare that you'd say Evans is going to sort of build towards something. There's more of a short-termist feel to it. But I think in terms of the other fixtures, I suppose you'd look at Bury, if they are going to be in existence at that point, which is a terrible situation. Looks as though they are. Hopefully they can sort of stabilise a bit, but even so, it's probably from a Gillingham perspective, I suppose you'd say that's quite a good time to play them in August. So it's going to be interesting to see how things come together, as well as, of course, that trip to Peterborough in January with Evans returning to his old club.
I've said it once on Twitter, and I've said it 100 times. If you're not following Gabe and his Twitter account, then go and do it straight away. I think it's at the Football Lab or at Football Lab. Knows his stuff in terms of the Football League, lower league football. Plenty of knowledge regarding pretty much every team across the 72 that don't play in the top division. Excuse me. So it's a real privilege to have him involved in this video, albeit for a too short a time. But appreciate your thoughts, mate, and obviously good luck with the pre-season predictions that I know you're working your way through. I promise I will get them questions answered and back to you as soon as possible. But cheers to Gabe. Like I say, keep an eye on him on Twitter and social media, because he is a fella that knows his stuff regarding the 72 teams outside of the Premier League. Yeah, just to reiterate what he said, I think in terms of the likes of Bury and Bolton, it's sad to see what them two clubs are going through at the moment, and we can only hope and keep our fingers crossed that come the time that Gills are due to play and they're still in existence and still going and hopefully going stronger than they're going at the moment. It's not fair at all on the fans of these historically two very good football teams that have been in the Football League for what seems like forever. And let's hope they get their situation sorted out quicker than sooner rather than later. But yeah, can only say that I think from a purely clinical point of view, playing Bury early on in the season might be an advantage to us. But yeah, just my thoughts on it. First two games I think are tough, but without being impossible, which I think is an ideal start for us and a new manager coming in, regardless of what your thoughts are on Steve Evans, the individual. Obviously, the main thing is that he can help us hit the ground running as best as possible. And we went to Doncaster 2 seasons ago on the opening day and picked up a credible 0-0 under Adrian Pennock. I think we'll be better equipped to go there this season. And obviously, the big thing from their point of view at the moment is their manager, Grant McCann, is being linked away from the club. It seems that Hull have come calm and he might be going there, but that's not confirmed by any means, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. The other one, John Marquis, been absolutely superb then for a few seasons now, and there's talk of Championship clubs sniffing around, so it'd be interesting to see, pretty much like Tom Eaves at our place, that how they maybe cope without their talismanic front man if he does move on. Burton at home repeats the first home game of last season, which we won 3-1, and that Mr. Eaves did come off the bench and score 2. Brandon Hanlon that day could have had about 4, but for the keeper, the crossbar, the post, and whatever else got in the way. But he was really impressive that day, and only went from strength to strength throughout the campaign. In terms of big games, Portsmouth away 12th of October, Sunderland away 7th of March. They stand out. They're probably going to be the two that are at the front of the bookmakers' minds in terms of promotion again. Both got into the playoffs last year. Both had times near the top of the table where you thought they was going to get promoted automatically, but ultimately both come up a little bit short. Sunderland did actually knock Pompey out in the playoffs before losing to Charlton in the playoff final at Wembley. But yeah, some interesting fixtures. And they've also been discussed by a resident Gills fan, Owen Stanley, and this is what he's had to say on yesterday's breaking news.
So obviously today was fixture release day, a massive day for Gills fans and all fans of the EFL, fans across the country. We personally start with a visit to the Keepmoat Stadium, Doncaster, much like it was 2 seasons ago in our first fixture, a very boring 0-0 draw under Adrian Pennock. And funnily enough, our first home game of the season sees us host Brighton Albion, much like we did last season in the first home game, so it's a bit weird of that one, but you know, if we get a similar result to what we did against Burton last season, everyone would be happy. I mean, the fixtures for me are okay. I mean, same old saying, isn't it? We play everyone twice, it doesn't really matter when we play them. Some people like to think like that. I mean, more than that for me, more than that for other people. I'd sort of look at who we're playing and when, and it's obviously the crucial times of the periods, like the festive periods and whatnot. And you know, we end the season at home. Didn't last season. We played Blackpool away, beat them in comfortable fashion. Possibly Tom Eaves' farewell appearance, probably was saying that. Yeah, but I think it's not too bad. I think particularly our last month of the season, if we are playing for something at that point, I think that last month is very, very kind to us. I think we've got some very favourable games, a lot of them at home. So the only possibly banana skin out of all of that, if you will be Bolton. We play them away in the final month. Discounting the month of May, which only has 1 game in it, I mean April of course, which is, you know, potential banana skin, but saying that they're going to be starting on -12 points, so where are they going to be by then, who knows. I mean, they're a club in turmoil, much like Bury, who are also in the league, which is obviously very sad to see, but you know, for me that month is going to be pivotal. Evans mentioned it earlier going through the fixtures about saying that squeaky bum time, and that those are the sort of fixtures he looks for, the ones we end with. To start, as I said, we have in the first month, obviously we're away to Doncaster, home to Burton Albion, then we go travel to Giggle Lane to take on Bury, and then we have a home game I think against Blackpool, I want to say, and then away to Coventry. Away to Coventry, we're going to Birmingham to watch Coventry Gillingham, so we're going to St Andrews for that, which is possibly a new ground for a few. I went a couple of years ago when we lost to them Well, I say them, I mean Birmingham in this case. We lost 2-0 to them in the League Cup. Good day out. Didn't expect much, but anyway, we're not playing Birmingham, we're playing Coventry. Weird. But yeah, that would be a good one for a lot of fans, I'm sure. Will bring a lot there, and that would be a good day for everyone. As I say, the festive season it ties into what I was saying about the crucial times of the season, where there's a lot of games merged into 1 month and a bit, and we actually have a New Year's Day fixture at home to Portsmouth, so we'll be picking up 3 of our 6 customary points against them on that day, which I look forward to, because it goes without saying we beat them all the time, and it's a good game to have at that sort of time. I mean, we played on Boxing Day last season and we beat them, so maybe they don't like playing during the winter. Maybe no, but I don't know. We actually have Sunderland away on a Saturday this year. I mean, we obviously did last year, but given we decided to fancy our chance to go to Wembley in the FA Cup, we played Swansea instead on that day, and it got moved to a Tuesday, so hopefully that stays as it is. I don't see why it wouldn't. Other local games, we have Southend on January 4th away, but that is also FA Cup 3rd round weekend, so if we do repeat our stance of last season and get quite far, then that will have to be rearranged for a Tuesday, which isn't the end of the world. It's a close by game, but I'd rather that be on a Saturday for obvious reasons. A very good away day, except for last year when I was probably the most livid at a game I've been at in my life, but that's besides the point. Season so far for me, I'll say season, the summer. The summer has been very productive for Gills. 5 or 6 signings is it, I think. Jack Bonham, Conor Ogilvie, Stuart O'Keefe, Matty Willock, Lee Hodson. Don't think I'm missing anyone. But yeah, if I am, then do let me know, because I probably am now saying that. But yeah, we've signed some decent players. Obviously, there was a whole debacle about getting Kieran Agard in. It never materialised, but if he was, as reported, asking for $5,000 a week or whatever it was, then we're probably better off staying clear. And I'm sure Evans has plan B, C, D, all the way through to Z for strikers, so he doesn't come to that course. Is very good recruitment at this level, as we know, and it's a very exciting time to be a Gillingham fan. We're going to obviously have a few more signings. I think we need quite a lot of cover in certain areas. I mean, we only have 1 striker, and we have 2 Tommies, if you count him, for the next, week or so until July 1st rolls around. Then he'll be more than likely out the door in case he fancies a U-turn, decides to stay, which of course he's more than welcome to do. I'd allow that. I think that'd be very nice for him to do, but we'll never know until that time comes around. I highly doubt it will, but hey ho, what can you do? He's thoroughly deserved his move if and when it comes, and it gives a chance for players like Brandon Hanlon to step forward and step into his boots, I suppose. I mean, Hanlon specifically ended the season very well. It's very impressed with him the last couple of months, and hopefully he can kick on with that. And yeah, very exciting time to be a Gillingham fan. Fixtures for me good. I mean, some teams you don't want to play at all, but got to. Recruitment's been good. The whole feel of the ground is good. Club's feeling nice, and I want to say United obviously wasn't that at first when Evans was appointed. A lot of debacle about that, people in, people out and whatnot. I wanted him from the start personally, so I'm happy he's here, but it seems more people are coming around to the idea now, and obviously he's not going to expect it to happen straight away. It all depends on results to win people around, and hopefully we'll get to see them soon. But yeah, overall I'm quite happy. Thanks Matt and the boys for having me on. Cheers.
Cheers, Owen, mate, for your thoughts so far on not just the fixture release, but also Steve Evans' reign. Like Owen says, he's been one that's championed the move for Steve Evans to come into the football club for quite a while. I wasn't, you know that, but I'm not going to talk about that anymore because it's been done. It's been covered plenty of times, and I think what we're doing now as a Gills support base is trying to look forward, support the football club, support the players that are going to be put on the pitch on a Saturday and a Tuesday, and supporting those that have come 3 o'clock first day of the season and are ready hopefully to go and earn us a point, 3 points, but at the very minimum put in a performance. Owen obviously seems very, very positive in terms of where he thinks we'll finish this season. Talks about the last month of the season, meaning April, being pretty favourable if we're in touching distance of the upper echelons of the Sky Bet League One table. Can't disagree in that respect. I'm not sitting here and saying that we're going to get in the automatic places or be guaranteed to get in the playoffs under Steve Evans. I know he's won promotion plenty of times in the bottom 2 divisions of this league and has a decent enough track record, but it's still a big job coming into Gillingham, and I don't think he's going to have as much money as he's had in previous jobs. But as I've already discussed on Twitter, the 5 signings that have come in so far, very impressed with. Connor Ogilvie, obviously been with us for 2 seasons, developed into a very good left-sided centre-back last season, almost accidentally. Jack Bonham looks a more than able replacement for Big Thomas Holy, who's gone to Ipswich. Who was the third one in the door? Lee Hodson, fullback, can play left side, right side, maybe right midfield at a push. Comes in as probably a direct replacement for the departing Luke O'Neill. Played SPL last season, has had spells in the Football League with MK Dons. Stuart O'Keefe, who my next guest is going to talk about in more detail, being a Crystal Palace fan. Comes with Premier League Championship pedigree, albeit not on a massive scale. Had 2 spells in League One last season with Portsmouth and Plymouth. I know their fans didn't talk of him too highly, but it tends to happen, doesn't it, when players leave football clubs or don't sign for football clubs, similarly to the Jack Bonham situation, where Bristol Rovers fans, if you look through their tweets, were all, oh yeah, he's very good, he's highly rated, he's a top class keeper at this level, and then we signed him instead of him, and oh, Jack Bonham's not very good. Fickle nature. And the final signing, the one that excites me, purely on the fact that where he's coming from. Obviously we know very little about him in terms of playing at League One level because he's never done it, but that's Matty Willock, one of the 3 Willock brothers. One whose name escapes me, left Arsenal, I think it's gone to Benfica or somewhere in Portugal. Yeah, but the main one is obviously the lad at Arsenal, who's highly thought of. Was very impressive in his cameo in the Europa League final defeat to Chelsea. But yeah, but we've got Matty, comes with what looks to be potential, pedigree. Played plenty of games, Premier League 2 under 23 level. Was on loan twice last season, I think. Went to or over the last couple of seasons, St Johnstone and St Mirren in the SPL he's played. Teamed up with Lee Hodson up there as well, and also finished the season in League 2 with Crawley. Output in terms of goals and assists wasn't massive, but I believe he picked up a couple of niggly injuries there, so that might have held him back a lot. But I think Nicky Butt's spoken highly of him, Steve Evans mentioned, and I just think if you're coming from Manchester United, you're going to have had a proper good grounding in terms of your football education and upbringing, and you're going to try and do things the right way. So for me, that's the one that's exciting me at the moment. The others are all very solid. I think there's not been one where you sort of go, that's underwhelming. I've not felt that with any of the 5 so far, and hopefully there'll be a few more in the door in the next days and weeks, because I think we're probably going to see another 5 again come in, I'd have thought, at least. So it'd be interesting to see who they are. In terms of the final fixtures, back onto just expanding on what Owen said, I think the last 11, if you look at them over the last couple of months of the season or so, are not a disaster. Obviously this is only on paper now, we're months away from where teams could be at that time of the season. There could be teams that you fancy to beat, could be flying high up the top. There could be teams that you think, oh, that'd be tricky, might be struggling. So, and obviously we've got no idea on rhyme or reason or form at the moment. But I think aside from Sunderland and Rotherham, the 9 other games in that run-in, if you want to call it that, I don't think should hold any fear for us. Obviously we'll have to go and make sure that we're set up correctly, that we've got the right personnel in the right positions, in the right system, and we're working hard on and off the ball and doing all the right things in terms of earning the right to play football in a way that Steve Evans sees fit to win us football matches. But yeah, I don't think it's a disaster. I think it's a decent enough looking ending to the season, and if we are in the top half, maybe within striking distance of the top 10, the top 8, the top 6, whatever you think is achievable, then fingers crossed. And we might enjoy the final couple of months of the season rather than nervously looking over our shoulder like we've done the last couple of years. Final guest tonight though, last but not least, like I say, journalist locally, works for BBC Radio Kent Sport. You can hear his dulcet tones every Saturday match day with the famous Peter Lloyd doing the commentary for all our football matches. And that is Ben Watts, and this is what he's had to say on the summer so far.
Ben Watts, commentator on the Gills for BBC Radio Kent. It's been an intriguing start so far to Steve Evans' tenure as Gillingham boss. Of course, lots of talk before he came in about whether or not he was the right man for the job. Particular focus seemed to be on his character, who he is as a person, who he is on the touchline. Of course, some previous incidents, and when he has been the opposing manager at Priestfield and against Gillingham, that famous one when Andy Hessenthaler was the manager, of course, and he was the manager at Crawley. And I've been impressed so far with how open and honest he's been about his own demeanour and the fact that, of course, he starts his Priestfield tenure with a touchline ban, and how on the first day that I and other members of the media spoke to him, he didn't shirk any questions, talking about that side of things and saying that he needs to channel his energies better, and the chairman's been very open about that as well, and they've had discussions on that, and certainly seems to be a desire to move away from that side of the story and focus on what Evans is about as a football man, and certainly his record speaks for itself. He's a serial promotion winner, and of course has managed big clubs in the past, the likes of Leeds United. When I spoke to him on that media day, I asked him which of his previous jobs, this Gillingham one, he compares to and the task ahead of him, and he said Rotherham United. Said about taking them up to the Championship and keeping them there as well, being one of the biggest achievements in his managerial career, and saying that if he can take this Gillingham group into the division above, that it would top that. And he's made a good start in terms of the players that he's brought in so far. It was a savvy move on the day that he was announced, and after the press conference had been completed, Conor Ogilvie was wheeled out as his first signing, and of course had a very successful time over the last couple of seasons, has really grown as a player during his loan spell at Priestfield, and Evans pointing out and remarking how Ogilvie's impressed him, and particularly as a centre-half, saying that Gills fans won't see too much of him at left-back in the recent Q&A with fans, which again I think was a good move, and one that showed what he's about and seems to have impressed many supporters who had their doubts about him, and great to see so many Gills fans in attendance at that as well, to hear from the man himself. And in terms of the other signings that he's brought in, of course he needed a goalkeeper with Tom Asholey leaving the club. Jack Bonham comes having impressed on loan at Bristol Rovers of late, and Lee Hodgson, one of the other signings, saying about how he's been in the squad at Watford and Brentford with Jack, and really rates him as a goalkeeper with potential. And Hodgson himself comes with plenty of experience, Northern Ireland international of course, and playing up in Scotland recently, and also in a number of divisions in this country. So he brings a versatile option to the fullback areas. Reinforcement in midfield as well. Matty Willock is the one that many people are talking about, purely on the basis that he's come from Manchester United and has come with this glowing recommendation from Nicky Butt, working in the academy at Old Trafford. So he's going to be an interesting one to see how he fits in, what he's about. Haven't seen too much of him so far, although Stuart O'Keefe, who does come in, have seen plenty more of him. Being a Crystal Palace fan, he was with the Eagles when they first got back into the Premier League a few years ago, and he's a combative midfielder. Really good engine on him. He'll really get about the pitch. Keeps it simple with his passing. So I think he'll certainly add a bit of steel to the Gills midfield. In terms of the fixtures, I think it's a pretty good start. Doncaster away, Burton at home to get started. It's one of those where you look at the fixture list, and of course every team home and away, as many fans will say, but apart from Portsmouth and Sunderland, who are still the two biggest teams in the division, who didn't light up the division last year or get promoted, of course, and as a result, you look at that and think, well, are there really anyone to be afraid of for Gillingham next year? I'm not sure there is, to be honest. And lovely that the League Cup draw has pitted Gills against Newport County, and it will mean a return to Medway for Michael Flynn, the Newport boss. I think that's a nice draw, brings a bit of interest as well. So it'd be nice to have that first League Cup game at Priestfield. And then, yes, on to the league season, of course. Only 6 weeks away now. Steve Evans still putting together a squad. We'll be looking to bring in reinforcements up front, of course, with the perceived wisdom being that Tom Eaves is going to leave. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do in that department. And then if they can get a good start to the league season, 4 points perhaps in those first couple of games, who knows where Gills are going to finish this season.
Cheers for that, Ben, mate. Much appreciated. Definitely got a voice for media. Love listening to your commentary when obviously can't travel to the away game, so keep up the good work. And just to sort of expand on what you said about Steve Evans and how you found him, how you've come across him as a man, as a person so far, as opposed to the football manager, and him wanting to get away from the confrontational nature that seems to follow him around. The fact that I think it's clear to see that every fan of opposition teams doesn't like Steve Evans, and that's understandable. He gets teams playing a certain way, makes them hard to beat. He gets them doing the ugly side of things correctly, and I've got no issue with that. I supported a Tony Pulis side back in the mid to late 90s that did that, and we were highly successful. Got promoted out of what is now League Two in his first season. Got promoted, nearly got promoted out of League One in 1999, but we won't talk about that game at Wembley. And no disrespect to Peter Taylor, because he come in the following campaign and done a great job and tweaked things and put his own stamp on things, but a lot of that team that did go back to Wembley to beat Wigan in 2000 were Tony Pulis type players, and I mean the likes of your big front men, your direct front men, your Carlos Arbors, your Bob Taylors, and then you had your hard-working midfielders, your Mark Saunders, your Andy Essenthalers, your Paul Smiths, proper defenders that knew how to defend, edit, clear it, win it, weren't afraid to go through people. And I know the game's changed, but your Guy Butters, your Adrian Pennocks, your Barry Ashbys, proper old school defenders. Behind that, we had a very class keeper in Vince Bartram. And then he sprinkled it with a little bit of stardust, Peter Taylor, when he came in, the likes of Ty Good, and we had Nicky Southall. Junior Lewis come in and offered us something different in midfield. He wasn't the best technically, but he was slightly different to the other three. And yeah, if Steve Evans can get the blend right between the exciting types of players that we've already got at the club, and we're looking to add the Matty Willocks, the Regan Charles Cooks, the Brandon Hanlons, the Elliott Lists, if we can get the Stuart O'Keefes coming in and maybe one other of that type. I know there is a rumour today that I've seen surfacing on social media, been linked to, I don't know if I'm going to say his name properly, is it Ushiemni Cisse, who I think might be out of contract at MK Dons. I think this story was run by the very good James at D3, D4 Football. I believe it's us and Stevenage that are linked. If we could get him in, I think that would be a decent addition. Looks to be another one, big lump, gets about the pitch, breaks up play, gives it to the stardust that want to go and get us on the front foot and creating. So I think in Steve Evans, in terms of how he's going to play, we know he's going to be direct. Whether that means he's just going to go back to front really quickly, I don't know. I think he'll try and play through midfield, but I think we'll have different ways of playing, different ways of getting it into our front players quickly. Excuse me. And if we can get into the right areas, then hopefully we'll have the type of player that I've just mentioned, the Hanlons, the Lists, the Willocks, the Charles Cooks, and whoever else comes in that can create some magic in dangerous areas and create goal-scoring opportunities. Obviously, we need a lot of work at the top end of the pitch, because we do only have Brandon Hanlon as a senior recognised striker at the moment. The Kieran Agard deal fell through. Would have been an all-right signing for me. I had no qualms about him coming to the football club, but I just think at nearly 30, had a decent season in League Two, but he's been very inconsistent at League One last few seasons. And again, you look at the other side, I know he was very good under Steve Evans at Rotherham a few years ago, but if he was rumoured to be wanting 5k a week, I think it's a bullet swerve. So, and I'm sure Steve Evans has got irons in plenty of other fires. But yeah, thanks to Ben, thanks to Owen, and thanks to Gabe for their input. It's nice to get the views of other people rather than just myself and Stocky and Boz all the time, and especially the likes of Gabe and Ben, who are obviously slightly more impartial. I know Ben follows us on a regular basis, but he's doing it from a professional point of view rather than a supporting point of view, I think. And yeah, just to sum up in terms of a couple more final fixtures that I'm looking forward to, obviously Posh away January the 11th and Rotherham away 28th of March are going to be Steve Evans returning to former clubs, so that'll be games with added spice, I'd imagine. And yeah, I think by the time we play them two on the road, we'll have an idea of how our 2019-20 campaign is going, because we'll be halfway or just over through the season. In terms of away games that myself and Boz and Stocky have loosely looked at in terms of targeting this year, I think there were 6 or 7 we're looking at. I think Oxford, Sunderland we want to do, Portsmouth we want to do, may go back to Wimbledon. Didn't like it the last time. Pedal we got beat, Rory Donnelly got sent off, Bagley Dack got injured. Apart from that, it was a good day. Coventry could be an interesting one because it's at St Andrews. There's a few others, maybe Posh, that could be interesting. Wickham, last away game of the season, could be a good trip. So yeah, there's some decent away days. There's going to be lots of travelling for the fans again. We're going to be racking up the miles. So those that go to every single away game, fair play to all of you, because it's a massive effort in terms of commitment, finance, and everything else. And I wish I could do it, but I can't in terms of family things and stuff like that. And it costs a lot of money. So, but we'll try to get to as many as we can. We'll try and cover as many games as we can with match day lives. This time of year we know is quiet, but in terms of summing up fixtures, you have to play everyone twice, but it's nice to be able to see where we play certain teams, where we can plan. I'm disappointed that Ipswich away is on Boxing Day, because I wanted to do that, but that's not going to happen now. Unfortunately, the wife and the kids will lock me in the house. I won't be allowed to go that far on Boxing Day. I'll be on a tight lead. Sunderland is one I'm definitely targeting, so unless Gills get to about the quarterfinals of the FA Cup, we should be safe this year. And yeah, in terms of the summer so far, like I said, my stance has softened in terms of Steve Evans since meeting him at the Q&A. Very happy with what he said, what he's done so far. Very impressed with the signings. So hope we can get a few more in the next few days to give us some more stuff to talk about. Thanks again to my guests. We'll be back shortly, I'm sure. Thanks for watching. Thanks for continuing to support the channel. Over 1,100 subscribers on there now on YouTube is unbelievable. So thank you very much. Facebook, I think we need one for 1,200, which is brilliant. So please keep spreading the word. Please keep sharing the page. Please keep telling everyone about us. Until next time, up the Gills.